Hello everyone, Happy New Year and welcome to the 2025 Year Update and Q&A video. 2024 was a fantastic year for the channel. We had tons of new exciting videos, including some featuring two major steam excursion locomotives. I got to document the White Pass and Yukon route for the first time, and perhaps the most exciting of all, the channel reached the incredible 1 million subscriber milestone. Thanks again to each and every one of you for making 2024 so amazing. As we begin the new year, I want to briefly share with you my plans for the months ahead and then respond to as many of your questions as I can. Once again, I got a record number of questions for the Q&A, so I will make the updates brief and then we will get right to the questions. Alright, let's get started. First, for those of you wondering, I do not have anything new to report on the movement of CoasterFan2105 to the SoCal Railway Museum. Currently, the museum is waiting on a Metrolink contractor to install a temporary track connection to the museum trackage. I am hopeful this will happen the first half of this year, but I will provide an update on the community tab when I have more information. For videos, I have a lot of plans in the works. As part of last year's million subscriber milestone, I have been trying to post a Steam or some other special video every month for a full year. These videos should continue through June, with hopefully some other special announcements along the way. I am also approaching my 1000th YouTube upload, which should be happening in March. I have another special video planned for that. Last year, I promised that I was going to finish my next long-distance Amtrak video, but unfortunately I got really behind in my video production the first half of last year and was unable to complete the script. I'm hoping to restart work on the video with a planned release date sometime this spring. Also affected by my backlog in video production was the Train Talk series, which only had one episode in 2024 featuring Montana Rail Link. That will not be the case this year. The first episode of Train Talk for 2025 has already been posted, with a second episode planned for March and several others throughout the year. My goal is to post at least 6 more episodes by the end of 2025. Another series that will be back this year is Following a Freight Train, which also had just one episode in 2024. I'm not sure how many episodes of Following a Freight Train will be uploaded in 2025, but I'm planning to make at least a few of them on Montana Rail Link. I may also have some videos on Canadian National's iron ore trains in Minnesota. In addition to these two series, Steam Trains Galore will also make a return this November for the 14th year. I may also make another Trains Galore video sometime this summer. Another series I was hoping to start in 2024 was my now long-planned Abandoned Railroads show. I have a lot of great ideas for that, but I have been kept so busy with other projects that I have not been able to dive into that just yet. I'm hoping to have some time later this year to work on that series. Now, on to this year's filming trip plans. Most of you probably know that I have already completed my first filming trip of the year. This was a very short week-and-a-half-long visit to Northern California and the Central Valley to film for several different videos on various commuter and Amtrak trains. The first video from that trip is now up, with several more in the works that will be posted in the coming weeks. My second planned trip of 2025 will be to Southern California sometime later this winter or this spring. I was hoping to visit last year, but it didn't work out because of the timing of the Canadian Pacific 2816 excursion and a few other things. For my big trip this year, I am planning on once again visiting the eastern US and possibly Canada. The goal is to cover many of the areas I didn't visit on my 2023 trip to the East Coast, including New England and the Reading and Northern 2102. Depending on how timing works out, I will likely also make a few stops in the Midwest along the way. As with last year, I continue to monitor the situation with CoasterFan2105's eventual move to the SoCal Railway Museum and will hopefully be able to cover that move when it happens. That does it for the update. Now let's get to some questions. How does it feel to reach 1 million subscribers while running this channel for 16 years? It's absolutely amazing. Thank you so much. What was your favorite episode to make for Train Talk? I like all of them, but I think over time I always try to improve my work more and more. So some of my more recent ones are my favorites, particularly the Montana Rail Link episode. What was it like when you heard your favorite locomotive, 2105, was going to a museum? It was great. I'm really happy both museums were interested in working with me to get the locomotive preserved. A lot of credit goes to my friend Brian McKenzie for facilitating negotiations between the two museums. Are you planning to do more train rides for future videos? I would like to do more train ride videos in the future, and I have tentative plans to make another train ride video sometime this year. What is the best area for rail fanning? It really depends on what you're looking for. If you like nice scenery with a good balance of freight and passenger trains, it's hard to get much better than Western Washington and Oregon. But if you're looking for a lot of different trains, Chicago is literally one of the best places in the country for that. What are some steam locomotives that you have not seen yet but you would love to see? My top priority for this year is the Reading and Northern 2102, followed by Nickel Plate Road 765. Do you have a model train collection? Yes. Will you document the return of Chesapeake and Ohio 614? I'd like to when it's running again. Will you rail fan the Sand Patch soon? What is your favorite freight railroad? What's the longest train trip you have been on? I don't have any immediate plans to film the Sand Patch, but I'd like to at some point. My favorite freight railroad is BNSF, and my longest train trip was on board the Amtrak Auto Train in 2019. Do you plan on making another top 10 video in 2025 about your favorite passenger locomotives? I'd like to do another top 10 video, and that sounds like a great idea. If the campaign for the Caltrain F40 project hadn't been suspended and a deal was reached, do you think there still would have been a strong possibility of acquiring one of the F40s for the Southern California Railway Museum? And which is your favorite Caltrain F40? I think there's a really good chance the museum would have gotten one. Between the online campaign and private pledges, we had already raised enough to make a competitive bid had the locomotives not received a waiver from the California Air Resources Board to run in Peru, and my favorite F40 was the 907. Have you ever visited the Southeastern Railway Museum in Duluth, Georgia? I have not, but if I'm in the area, I'd love to go. What's your favorite Metra F59 PHI? 73, just because I've seen it more than any of the others. Are you going to go to Puget Sound in 2025? I live in Western Washington now, so that's almost a guarantee. Have you been to Louisiana, and if you haven't, would you visit it? I have been to Louisiana in April of 2019, and I'd love to go back in the future. I actually posted a video a couple years ago about the New Orleans streetcar. Have you ever caught a BC Rail cowl unit, and do you plan to rail fan Michigan at some point? Yeah, I saw a BC Rail -840 CM a few years ago, and I've been to Michigan, but I'd like to return in the future. Now that they are all completed, which CSX Heritage unit is your favorite? The CSX Chassis System unit number 1973. Favorite catch of 2024? Canadian Pacific 2816, followed very closely by White Pass and Yukon 73. Thoughts on New York Central 3001 being restored? I'm really excited at the prospect of a New York Central steam locomotive running again. Will you rail fan in Ohio? I don't have anything planned right now, but I'd like to at some point. Can you make a video about the subdivisions of California? I do have plans to make some episodes of Train Talk about various major rail lines. I have one script that's mostly done, but I still need to get some more video. Do you plan on visiting or returning to the Surf Line? Yes, I should be back this spring. Can you do a collection video of your model trains? Maybe at some point. Could you do a history video about the Mount Rainier Scenic Railroad like the Rio Grande Narrow Gauge video? I might at some point. There is some history on that line in my episode of Following a Freight Train on the Tacoma Rail Hill job. What livery best suits SP4449? Definitely Southern Pacific Billboard, hands down. What has been your most valuable lesson you have learned while making videos for YouTube? That's an interesting question. I'd say the most important thing is to make sure you enjoy your work. It takes a lot of time to put a video together, especially some of the bigger projects, so have fun doing it and put something together that you enjoy watching at the end of the day. Are you going to film Caltrain again now that it's electrified? Yes, I should have a full video out on the new trains very soon. What is your favorite coaster cab car? For years it was 2303, but now I also really like the 2302. How many train videos do you have? The channel is nearly to 1,000 videos, but if you're talking about individual clips, it's definitely in the tens of thousands at this point. How many former SP and Chicago Northwestern locomotives have you seen? I've seen a bunch of them, but most of them on the Union Pacific have already been repainted. What is your perspective on being so well known in the online railfan space? Did you ever imagine it when you started? I know I use this word a lot to describe it, but it really is surreal. In many ways, I just feel like any other person, but then there are times when it really hits me. I notice it even more when I'm out and about filming. I often have people recognize me and they come up to say hi, and it's a really neat experience. I really do feel so incredibly lucky to have so many fans and friends. And in terms of did I ever imagine it when I started? No, not at all. It was a very different community on YouTube back then. It was a lot smaller. And I just didn't see the potential for even having an audience a fraction of the size of the channel as it currently stands. It's amazing. When California High-Speed Rail is done, will you see it? Yes, I will put a video together about it at some point. When are you returning to North Carolina? I'd like to this year if I have a chance. Have you been to Inman Yard in Atlanta? I've never been to Atlanta. What was your best catch when you went to Canada? I really liked seeing the GO Transit F-59s and the Via Rail J trains. Do you think Metrolink will keep running the F-59 locomotives for many years? My guess is it won't be too long. There's a chance Metrolink will buy 2 of Coaster's Charger locomotives, and if that happens, that greatly lowers the likelihood that the F-59s will continue in service. What inspired you to relocate to Washington State, and what are your favorite short lines here? My family moved up to Washington State, and I wanted to stay closer to them. My favorite short line in Washington is probably the Columbia Basin, but there are a ton of neat ones to choose from. Will you ever railfan internationally? I want to, but I don't have anything international planned right now outside of Canada. Hopefully soon. If you do go to Europe, which country are you going to visit first? Probably the UK or Germany. I'd really like to see some of the steam heritage railways. What's your favorite type of GEVO? The Tier 4 GEVO. If you could pick any of these 3 railroads to save, which one would it be? The Milwaukee Road. What is your favorite Amtrak line? The Coast Starlight, followed by the Empire Builder and Amtrak Cascades. Will you ever come back to Fresno? I was just in Fresno, but I will definitely return. Are you going to make vlogs in the future? Maybe. What kind of vlog would you like to see? What's a railroad you have not been to that you want to go to? The Reading and Northern. Have you or will you do a compilation of subway light rail commuter systems across the USA? I haven't filmed as many subways as I would have liked to at this point, partially because they can be a challenge to film. At some point, I'd like to do more subway videos and possibly a full compilation. Are you going to the California State Railroad Museum to check out the newly restored Southern Pacific Tunnel Motor? I'd like to if I have a chance the next time it runs. Will you make a farewell video to the Acela Express when it's retired? Yes, that's definitely in the works. What is your current favorite spot to railfan? I really like the coastal views along the BNSF Bellingham subdivision and the Scenic subdivision. Are you going to do a video on the CSX Heritage units? Maybe, but I have yet to film any of them, so hopefully this year. Do you miss the Amtrak Surfliner F-59 PHI locomotives? Yeah, I really like the F-59s. It's amazing they've been gone for 6 years now. Can you make a video about how trains first started? Interesting question. I've actually thought about doing a video on that topic, so hopefully at some point. What are some tips for small railfanning channels like me? YouTube is quite a bit more complicated than it used to be, but I'd say the most important thing is to make videos that you enjoy making. Come up with a topic you find interesting and make a video about it. What was your favorite filming location this year? Dakota, Minnesota along the Mississippi River. Can you do a Portland and Western video? Yes, I have a few Portland and Western videos in the works long term. One of them I'm almost done filming for, and that should be out later this year. Any chance on going to Hawaii and doing a video on the Hawaiian Railway? I'd like to, but I don't have any immediate plans. What do you think about Amtrak turning the HHP8s into cab cars? I think it's an interesting use of old equipment. It's always good to see things being repurposed rather than just scrapped. What is one country you want to film trains in? Australia or the UK? Will you ever make a video about some of the unique short lines in the Pacific Northwest, both current and past? Yes, I have several in the works right now. Are you into anything steam-wise besides locomotives? I like steam tractors, and some of the old steam cars are pretty cool, and I also like steam calliopes. What rail fanning places are your favorites that you've been to many years ago? My favorite historically was always the Del Mar Cliffs in San Diego. Are you planning to do rail fanning in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan? Funny you should ask that. My original plan for last year's Midwest trip was to spend some time in the Upper Peninsula as well as the neighboring part of Canada, but ultimately I ended up rearranging the trip and I didn't have time to get to it. So hopefully I will get there at some point. Where have you not been to railfan yet? There are a number of places in the southern US I haven't been to, and also northern New England. What are the strobe lights on Metroliner cab cars and some other rail equipment for? They're another form of warning lights used by some railroads to get people's attention. How do you spot one train in so many areas? In many places, rail routes are either slower or less direct than the roads. This is especially true for freight trains and steam excursions. So, I see the train at one spot, pack up my equipment, and then drive to the next spot down the road. In some places, it's easier to get ahead of the train than others. Are you ever going to film non-North American trains? I would really like to at some point, but I have not planned anything yet. What is the best heritage railroad in North America, and what makes you like that railroad? My top 3 favorites are the Durango and Silverton, the Cumbres and Toltec, and the White Pass and Yukon. All 3 have incredible scenery and really cool narrow gauge trains, including historic steam locomotives. What is your favorite model train company? Rapido for anything passenger, Scale Trains for freight locomotives and cars, and Broadway Limited for steam locomotives. All 3 companies make fantastic models. What was your very first steam locomotive you ever caught on film? I think it was Hammond Lumber Company 17 at the Mount Rainier Scenic Railroad. Have you ever made a video focused on Brightline? I did, but it was before the Orlando extension. Would you ever railfan in Oklahoma? And what is your favorite steam locomotive whistle? I have filmed just a couple trains in Oklahoma, but I'd like to do some more at some point, and my favorite steam whistle is the Southern Pacific 6 chime. Was 2008 your first year of visiting Chicagoland? Yes, it was. Out of all the steam trains you saw in 2024, which one was your favorite? Canadian Pacific 2816. What do you think of the citizen-led Rio Grande plan? It seems like a lot of rail fans aren't excited about it because it will ruin sight lines for trains. There are a few good locations in Salt Lake City where you will no longer be able to photograph trains, but I think the benefits far outweigh the costs. Personally, I'm way more excited at the prospect of seeing a historic train station put back into service as an actual station. The historic depot will be a much better place for passengers than the current downtown station in Salt Lake City. Will you capture Santa Fe 3751's next excursion? If the timing works out, I'd like to. Have you received your golden play button? Yes, I actually had a clip of it hidden in the 2024 Year of Trains in Review video. If you could make one change to Amtrak that you think would make a big improvement, what would it be? Probably adding track capacity to different routes in terms of adding double track in some areas, or maybe building entirely new dedicated rail lines for Amtrak to run on. I think that would greatly help with congestion issues and potential delays from other trains. Are you excited for Union Pacific 39, 85, and 5511 to come back to the main line? Yes. Are you considering making trip reports on the Avalia Liberty if it comes out, or on the Floridian? Eventually, I plan to cover both. Favorite New England Railroad and why? The New Haven, just because I really like the paint scheme. Would you go to New England next year, and if so, what railroads would you like to see? I will hopefully have a chance this year, but not sure yet. One of my top priorities is revisiting the MBTA and also some of the 2-foot narrow gauge lines in Maine. What was the first ever diesel or electric locomotive you saw? Most likely an Amtrak F40. Will you film more Eastern and Southeastern trains? Yes. How did you enjoy the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad? It was great. I'd never been before, and I'd like to spend more time there in the future. How do you manage to identify diesel locomotives so well? I've just been looking at them for a very long time. But, I'm not perfect, and some of the EMD locomotives in particular are very hard to tell apart. How many of Amtrak's 50th anniversary units have you seen? I've seen every single one but 100. Are you going to do any more videos on long-distance Amtrak trains? Yes, I have 3 that are just about ready, one of which I've completely finished filming. I just need enough time to write a script for it, and then I can start assembling it. What is the most popular locomotive you've ever filmed? Union Pacific 4014. Next time you visit the Washington, D.C. area, would you be able to film more D.C. Metro trains? If I have time to, I'd like to. Are you planning to film the Bicentennial Freedom Train next year? If one is running, then yes. How do you feel having 1 million subscribers? Awesome. Just awesome. It's so cool that so many people enjoy watching my videos. Have you ever been in the cab of an operating steam locomotive? Yes, I have. And I have some cab ride video from Western Maryland Scenic Railway number 734 in one of my videos. How'd you start your channel off? I started over 15 years ago just posting single clips of local passenger trains in San Diego, and over time it grew into longer compilation videos, then some narrated videos, and then more complex videos as time went on. What train in Australia, be it a locomotive or DMU, do you like the most? I really like the Victorian Railway's J-Class steam locomotives. If there was one steam locomotive that hasn't run in excursion service yet that you'd like to see restored, what would it be? Southern Pacific 4460. Best commuter operator on the east coast of the US and Canada? I'm not sure, but I think New Jersey Transit has the most interesting equipment. Out of all 50 states, which ones have you been to? I've been to every single state except Hawaii. What do you prefer more, steam or diesel? I like them both differently. I don't think I like one over the other, they're just both cool for different reasons. How many GE P42 DC Genesis locomotives have you seen in the new Phase 7 livery? I think just 3 so far. Do you plan on posting a White Pass and Yukon video outside of Steam Trains Galore? Yes, there will be 2 more White Pass and Yukon videos coming out later this year. Do you plan on posting a full video on the Orange Empire Railway Museum eventually? I will likely be doing many videos on the Orange Empire Railroad Museum, which is now the SoCal Railway Museum, in the future, so stay tuned for that. Can you come to the BNSF Scenic Subdivision? I frequently film along the Scenic Sub and will be doing more this year. Now that you've been to Canada, is there anywhere else you would like to visit? Yes, a lot of places in Europe, South America, and elsewhere. What's your dream for your YouTube channel? I've had a long-term passion project I've been working on for several years now that when finished, I'm hoping will be the highlight of my channel. What are your thoughts on the gas turbines? They were neat locomotives. What is the worst station on the Pacific Surfliner? Worst station? Maybe one of the ones that's just an open-air platform with no building or facilities of any kind. What's your opinion on Oregon? It's very scenic. Favorite memory from rail fanning? I've really enjoyed looking at Montana Railing during its final years. I also really liked the Canadian National trains on the Iron Range in Minnesota. Are there any more F-59s running on Amtrak? The only F-59 PHIs currently in service on Amtrak are the ones owned by the state of California for the Capital Corridor in San Joaquin, and the 2 owned by North Carolina for Piedmont service. What is your feedback on Norfolk Southern 4851? I think it's a nice looking locomotive. Do you plan on rail fanning South Texas? I don't have any plans, but I want to. What is your favorite Metra special unit? I really liked the 100 when it was in the RTA wrap. Are you getting a drone? I've thought about getting a drone, but there's a lot of time involved in getting a commercial license, and I unfortunately don't have enough extra time for that right now, but hopefully eventually. What's your opinion on the new Acela trains? I think they're pretty neat looking trains. Will you ever make a return to the Western Maryland Scenic Railroad so you can film 1309? I've been wanting to see 1309 for years now, so hopefully it will be back up and running soon. What's your opinion on theme park railroads? I appreciate that a lot of parks preserved these steam locomotives, otherwise a number of them would not be around today. What are your thoughts on Walt Disney's view of trains? I think Walt Disney was a very influential figure in the railroad enthusiast world, and it's neat that he was able to share his passion with so many people. What locomotives do you think Dreamstar Line trains will use for their San Francisco to LA route? I have no idea, but maybe some sort of rebuilt used passenger diesels, or if they have enough funding, maybe brand new Siemens Chargers with venture car sets. Are Coaster 2101, 2102, and 2104 able to get acquired by other museums or tourist railroads, and would they need a waiver? Restoring any units that were replaced as part of the CARB Carl Moyer program would, in theory, require a waiver. I'm not sure what will happen to the other 3 Coaster F40s at this point, but they remain in the scrapyard. What happened to all the Metrolink F59PH and F59PHI locomotives? They were mostly retired and disabled as required by the California Air Resources Board. Are you going to do a Train Talk episode on the Amtrak Siemens Chargers? Eventually, I will do a Charger episode of Train Talk. Have you ever operated a locomotive? Yes, I have. What's your opinion on the Long Island Railroad? It's a really neat commuter railroad with an interesting history. Have you thought of going international this year for hitting 1 million subscribers? Yes, that was actually one of the things I was planning to do, but I just didn't have the time with other things I wanted to film in the US. I do have some other things, hopefully, on the way for the 1 million subscriber special, so stay tuned this June. Will you ever come to Vermont and record the SD70M-2 431 and 432? Hopefully this year. What are your opinions on the use of older Amtrak equipment on the Surfliner trains? I think it's cool and I'd like to see it. What infrastructure projects involving trains excite you the most? I'm always interested in the Surfline rail improvement projects in Southern California. Opinions on Frontrunner. I really liked it when I saw it in 2015 and wrote it in 2019. Hopefully I'll have a chance to film more videos on it in the future. What's your favorite commuter railroad? It's a tie between Sounder and Coaster. What will they use Caltrain AEM7 938 for? The Caltrain AEM7s were supposed to be used for testing the overhead electrical wires, but as far as I know, that never happened. Not sure what the current plan is for them. Where will the Coaster F59 PHIs go after they're gone from Stuart Mesa? That is yet to be determined right now. What is your favorite video that you've made so far? I really liked the full video on 2816 that I did last year. Will you visit the Midwest Central Railroad? That has been on my list for a while now, but unfortunately they only run 1 weekend a year, so it's difficult to plan around. Can you make a video about UP SD70 ACE locomotives? That is a very likely project in the future. How many types of BNSF locomotives have you seen, and how common are Dash 8s in your area? I've seen more than 24 different types of BNSF locomotives, pretty much everything that's currently running, plus several older, now retired models, including the Dash 7, GP7, and non-rebuilt GP30. Dash 8s are very rare in Western Washington. The only one currently in regular service is Amtrak 506, which is the Seattle Yard Switcher. Thoughts on the new Floridian? I think it's a good use of equipment, and it will help Amtrak work on the tunnels in New York by decreasing the number of trains that pass through temporarily. When were you in Ypsilanti, Michigan, and did you visit Ann Arbor? I was in Ypsilanti last summer, and I did visit Ann Arbor. Will you ever make a video on the Santa Maria Valley Railroad? I'm hoping to this year. What's your feeling on the current state of railroads in America? I think there are a lot of potentially promising changes, particularly with passenger rail. At the same time, it is sad to see a lot of rail equipment I've lived with for so many years now getting retired. Did you enjoy chasing 2816 or 4014 more? What are your top 6 mainline excursion locomotives you've chased over the years? 2816 more, but I also enjoyed 4014, and the top 6 would be 2816, 4014, 4449, 3751, 611, and 844. Do you plan on donating to the T1 Trust Cylinder Club? I wasn't even aware of that. I'll look into it. Will you ever do a video on the Trinity Railway Express? Yes, I've been wanting to do one for years, but unfortunately my travels have not taken me through that part of the country since 2019. Hopefully soon. Can you make a video on the smart commuter rail next? Video is in progress. Would you ever do a train talk or come out to New England to film the narrow gauge trains? I am hoping to do that this year, but that's dependent on what else I have to film while I'm back east. Are you excited for the new Cascades Aero trains? Yes, I'm looking forward to seeing them in service. Any idea where SB 1744 is at? 1744 is currently being rebuilt at the Niles Canyon Railway. What's your favorite Metrolink engine? My favorite before it was retired was 860. If the CEM cab cars for Coaster go into service, will you catch them on video? I will do a video of them once they enter service. Will you ever return to train spotting Long Island Railroad in Long Island? I would like to eventually. Will you return to the Alaska Railroad to do some rail fanning? Yes, but probably not until Alaska Railroad 557 is up and running. Will you cover more about Metro North's 40-year heritage in a Train Talk episode? I would like to do a more in-depth video on Metro North at some point. Will you do another top 10 list? Eventually, yes. How does it feel that you are now probably the biggest rail fanner? It's pretty hard to believe. Will you ever do a train talk on the American Freedom Train? I might do that next year. How do you feel about Rio Grande 492 being restored to operational condition by the Cumbres and Toltec Scenic? It's great news. Do you think diesel locomotives running on biofuels, natural gas with hybrid can help the environment as well as hydrogen and battery? Possibly, but I'm not sure. What's your favorite diesel from Alco that you would like to see in operating condition again? Definitely an Alco PA. Which steam giants are you looking forward to when they are restored and operational again? I'm really looking forward to seeing 3985 again. Will there be any model train or narrow gauge videos soon? There will definitely be more narrow gauge videos this year. Not sure yet when the next model train video will be. What's your favorite part about the Pacific Northwest? I love the landscapes, the variety of trains, and the wildlife. Thoughts on Phase 7 P42s? It's neat to see the P42s in a new standard scheme. It's been more than 20 years since that last happened. Favorite locomotive from the White Pass in Yukon? The 73 followed by 108. What's your opinion on the daylight paint scheme? Easily my favorite paint scheme. What steam engine would you want to see do a big excursion? SP 4449 or SPNS 700. What is your favorite part of rail fanning? I love seeing different places and being outside in the world. I really do enjoy the sunlight and nature. What new railfan locations are you planning to check out? Well, this year I just got back from filming the Smart Commuter Rail Line, which I have never seen at all before. That's a really neat railroad. Later this year, hopefully the Reading and Northern, and maybe a few places in Canada, depending on how things go. Is there an update about Coaster 2105 and ATSF 5704 going to the Southern California Railway Museum? Right now, the museum is waiting for a Metrolink contractor to install a temporary track connection. I'm hopeful that will happen the first half of this year, but I'll be sure to let you know when I have an update. What was the coolest train you've ever caught? BNSF's Custer to Everett, Washington manifest with Dash 8 563 leading and several older EMD GP series locomotives. Has there ever been a dedicated rail fan trip that you could go back and do again? Probably some of my earlier trips, just because I have better equipment now and I have improved my videography a lot over the last 10 years. At the top of that list would probably be the trip I took to the Northeast in January of 2015. That was really a great trip. Do you plan on visiting the Mid-Continent Railway Museum? Yes. How did Coaster 2105 become your channel's locomotive? Years ago, I had an HO scale model of the locomotive, so naturally it became my favorite coaster locomotive. One of the first train trips I went on after getting my first video camera was on a coaster train pulled by the 2105, so when I made my YouTube channel, it seemed like a good fit. First excursion you ever rode? First train I ever rode was the Amtrak San Diegan from San Diego to Del Mar. First mainline steam excursion was the June 1st, 2008 trip of Santa Fe 3751 to San Diego. What is your favorite steam locomotive that you've photographed? Southern Pacific 4449. Favorite railroad liveries: Southern Pacific Daylight, Santa Fe Red and Silver, Original Coaster, and Amtrak Phase 3. Best looking train or locomotive: Southern Pacific GS Class steam locomotive. Favorite type of cab car: the Bombardier Bi-Level. What is your plan for your next rail fanning trip? The next trip I have coming up will likely be to Southern California later this winter or early in the spring. What's your favorite Norfolk Southern Heritage unit? The D&H one. Oops. I mean New York Central 1066. Would you return to the Tennessee Valley Railroad Museum and the Nevada Northern Railroad in Ely, Nevada? Yes, definitely. What was your favorite capture of Union Pacific 4014? This clip from the 2019 Golden Spike excursion. Will you ever do a Minecraft live stream? I don't have any plans for that, but I have considered the option of doing some sort of a live stream at some point. Would you do Diesel Trains Galore 3? Most likely eventually. Will you film the Smart Train? I just did, and the video will be coming soon. Would you do Passenger Trains Galore 3? Quite possibly. Would you film the RTD in Denver? Eventually, yes. Would you do Electric Trains Galore 2? Maybe, but it's dependent on the availability of more electric trains for me to film. Favorite EMD locomotive? The F40PH. What's your favorite train catch? CoasterFan2105 meeting Santa Fe 3751. Do you plan on making any East Coast trips, and would you like any suggestions on good places? Yes, I am planning on going on another East Coast trip this year, and I'm always open to suggestions for locations. Any plans to come out to Arizona and film videos for the channel? I'd like to, but I'm not sure if I will be able to this year. Have you been to the Georgetown Railroad in Colorado? Yes, I've featured it in a few videos on my channel and in a standalone video a few years ago. Favorite British locomotive? Steam would be the Flying Scotsman. Diesel-wise, I really like the Class 40. What is your favorite Canadian Pacific Railway steam locomotive besides 2816 and the 2860 Canadian Pacific 3716? What is your favorite Canadian National Railway steam locomotive? CN 6060. Do you plan on documenting the Point Defiance bypass? I did a video on it a while back and will likely do more in the future. What was the best part about Amtrak Cascades? The route followed by the equipment. I really like the Talgo trains. Do you plan on doing another Tacoma Rail video? I have another video on the DuPont turn all filmed and ready to go. I just need to write a script and edit the video. What is your favorite type of freight car? The boxcar. Have you ever watched the 3 Lots and Lots of Trains films? I've seen some of them. Do you plan to visit the Grapevine Vintage Railroad in Texas, and will any Dash 2 variants of Metra's F40s be preserved in museums? I'd like to, and I'm not sure. What is your favorite narrow gauge steam locomotive? Denver and Rio Grande 315. Do you ever plan to chase nickel plate 765? I would like to if the timing works out. Are you going to India? No current plans, but maybe at some point down the road. Would you go to Europe to film trains, especially in Bosnia, because they have steam locomotives that work in a coal mine there? I'd really like to. Do you have any major plans in 2025 to travel abroad to Europe to film trains there? 2025 is already shaping up to be a pretty busy year for me, both in terms of filming and with my personal life, so I don't anticipate a trip outside the US this year, except possibly back to Canada. Do you have any interest in creating a public Discord? I've been approached about doing that before, and I think it's a neat idea, but I don't have the time right now that I would need to devote to setting something like that up and making sure it's working smoothly. Since it is most likely that Sierra Railway number 3 will be running by the start of next season in April, will you be able to film it? Not sure if I can this year, but I definitely want to see it again. Are you planning on making more videos on Santa Fe 3751? When it runs again, yes. What is your favorite filming location? The Del Mar Cliffs in San Diego or Edmonds in Washington State? Excluding all 3 West Coast states and British Columbia, what is your favorite state to train spot in? Probably Pennsylvania. Are you going to do any more videos on SP4449 or SPNS 700? I would like to do more about both of those locomotives, but it depends on when they next run. Right now, I would be limited to doing episodes of Train Talk about 4449. What's your favorite locomotive and railroad? Southern Pacific and 4449. What is your favorite freight locomotive? The Dash 8. Do you ever plan to visit Lawton, Michigan? I was super close to there last summer, but maybe I will film there at some point too. What is your favorite Union Pacific, Norfolk Southern, CSX, and Amtrak Heritage Unit? 1996, 1066, 1973, and 164. When Amtrak finally places the new Avelia Liberty train sets into service, do you hope at least one of the first generation Acela Express train sets will be preserved? I hope one will be, but we shall see. Favorite state to railfan in? Washington State. Will you film WeGo Star commuter trains in 2025? Not sure if I will get to it in 2025, but I'd like to film it again. Will you go to Colorado? I've been to Colorado several times, but I'm sure I'll be back eventually. Would you try railfanning in Folkestone, Georgia? When I'm in Georgia, yes. I'm looking to upgrade my recording device from phone to camcorder. Any camcorder recommendations that do 4K and 60 frames per second? It's a challenge because options are pretty limited for cameras that do both 4K and 60 frames a second at the same time. I've seen ones that do one or the other, but not many that do both. I would almost consider looking at a mirrorless camera if you're looking into doing 4K 60 frames a second at this point. What camera do you use? Canon XF400. And that does it for this year's Q&A and year update. Thanks so much for joining me. Thank you for making 2024 a great year, and here's to an amazing 2025. As always, a special thanks to all my supporters on Patreon. I'll see you next Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific Time for a brand new railroad-themed adventure right here on the YouTube channel. That's it for now. Until next time, I'm Mike Armstrong. I'll see you down the line. Thanks for watching.